All right, welcome to another edition of our Heart Driven Hustle. We are hanging out today with the lovely Susan Binney. I'm pretty excited that she's with me. The great thing about this particular, I don't know if I should call it a podcast or interviews, anyway, this series that we're doing, Susan, is that I have been able to connect mostly with people that I know or have some kind of a relationship with, or we've connected somewhere in the world. And I'm finding that by taking these moments to actually talk about what we're up to, what we're putting out into the world, and sort of our medicine almost, right? How the heck did we get here to be offering what we're offering, has been a really interesting thing. Now, before I get too far into that, for anybody who's just found us, if you would like, love, follow, comment, subscribe, whatever that is, wherever you find us on whatever platform that is, for those of us putting content like this out there, it means so much to us when you do that. So that's my ask of you. You'll find us hosted on the Divas That Care network. So that's just divas.thatcare.com. You'll find me, CandiceSmiley.com, and we'll have links for my guests and anybody else that we have on here, always in the comment box below. So please make sure you go like, love, share, follow, comment, subscribe. We really do love you for that. So without any further ado, I want to head over to my guest. Susan, I have your bio in front of me, but I'm not going to read it. I want you to share with our listeners and our watchers sort of who you are, what you've got going on in the world. And then I got a couple of questions for you based on how you share your bio with us. The call's yours.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Susan Binney, and I help women take the word can't out of their vocabulary.
Ooh, love
And
it.
there's a bit of a story behind why I do that, because, I took it out of my daughter's world through stuff she had going on, but I never took it out of mine. And so I learned, after being laid off from a job after 17 years, I learned that taking that word can't out of my vocabulary and standing strong in the power of my story, the story I tell myself more so than the story I tell others, has been so very powerful and life-changing for me. And so I help other women do the same thing so that they can put themselves out to the world. They can connect with who they need to connect with. They can make all the money they want to make. They can live the life of their dreams. But if we're not telling ourselves a positive story about us, and can we or can't we, that can keep us stuck. So it's really about taking that word can't, out of your world, out of your vocabulary.
Wow. Yet again, um, this sitting down to hold space in this particular way with this intention is blowing my mind. So can't is a word that I eliminated from my vocabulary a long time ago, largely when I got pregnant with Inara, because I was so aware that what we speak, right? So what we speak the world into existence, at least that's my experience of the world. We create our world with our word. Sound is so important. And so for our other listeners, I did a couple of interviews actually on sound and the power of that. But it's so interesting that you bring that up, because so many times it's that BS story that we're telling ourselves, the one that runs at the back of our head the whole time, which I was actually discovering this weekend, Susan. I had an opportunity, I was sort of journaling, but in that sort of mind space where I was just letting the pen flow because there were some emotions I wanted to get out onto paper, right? There was a story I was telling myself. And it was interesting because when I was reading it back to myself, I was like, when did I write that sentence? Like there was an entire sentence that I don't actually remember writing. There was sentences that I was like, oh, I don't like how I put that. Hang on, cancel, delete. What I want to be thinking about this is this, and what I want to be saying is that. So I think it's so interesting that you bring it up. And funny side note, but usually when I'm talking to, customer service type people, and they say, well, we can't do that for you, Miss Smiley, I say, can't or won't, because can't means you physically can't do it. There is something that's going to stop you from doing it. Won't might be policy, and won't we can talk about. Won't we can negotiate. And usually on the line, there's this silence of, I hadn't actually thought about that. Is it because I won't do it for you, or because I physically can't do it for you? So I think that's highly entertaining. Susan, I think we're going to enjoy ourselves here today. So I know that you and I met because I'm currently working on a book and writing my story. It's kind of an interesting time, right? The world has basically, as I said on one of my last interviews, picked us up and dropped us in our homes and said, sit, stay. And for a lot of us who are busy doing or busy beings, better at doings than beings generally, we're finding ourselves with time to talk about stories. So that's kind of what I'm going to say to sort of set you up. What do you want to do to follow up with that?
Yeah, story. It's interesting when you said about, when you're talking to people at customer service and they say they can't, and you turn it into you can't or you won't. And I think of that quite often when I speak and when I'm in an event and people say to me, well, I can't. And I'm like, no, you can. You choose not to, because life is a choice, right? And so I know when we met, there's like you've been a part of my world for like, I don't know, 2-ish years
Mm-hmm.
on Facebook Live, on Facebook Land. But in the real world, it's like I just met Candice not too long ago because this is the time. This is when we needed to find each other. And if we're with COVID right now, and I have to bring that up because so many people have chosen to just stop. And the time to tell yourself this story that you can is now. What does it look like? You've been basically thrown a curveball. And how do you catch that?
Mm-hmm.
How do you pick that up? And how do you
Mm-hmm.
throw that at other people? And what does that mean for you? Because life is going to change. Things are going to be different. So think really outside of that box, and better yet, take that box, crumble it, and live outside of it, because you never know when that box is going to be taken away from you. And so
That's
the connection and the timing and the space that we are all in right now. I mean, you've been inserted in my life, I've been inserted in yours. And instead of trying to figure out, well, why and how and what do we do with this, we're just open to those possibilities. And I think that's so huge right now.
I think so too.
um, because you just don't know what those
Mm-hmm.
possibilities are going to show.
Mm-hmm.
But
I,
you can anything if
mm-hmm.
you choose to.
Yeah. Well, and I think that that's interesting because, and I think about this is bringing up a thought. When Inara was little, she would pick up like 2-pound weights and 5-pound weights, and she's like a slip of a thing, right? If you've ever met her, she's tiny, she's petite, she's, slight, and she would pick these things up and just raise them above her head. And I'm thinking, wow, in a ratio perspective, if I did that in my body, my brain would probably be saying something like, you can't do that, right? And so then I would choose not to. And so I think about that in both in my life and in other people's lives. Case in point, when my grandmother at the end, she had her memory was, had one of those memory diseases that robs you of who you are, right? We are such a sum of the memories we carry. And she was painting at the end of her life. And I went to visit her and I said, Grandma, did you paint these? And she says, of course I did. And I remember thinking, okay. And I said, well, they're really good. And she was like, quite good. And I said, I didn't know you were a painter. And she says, well, I've always been a painter. And I thought, what kind of a story were you telling yourself your whole life? Because you never did. She never, at least not that I knew of. She would have always said, I'm not creative. She was a brilliant cook. She was brilliant at everything else. But I didn't see that side of her. And it's always made me pause and I think, well, am I not good at this because I choose to not be good at this, or because I won't, right? I won't let myself be good at it. So it's such an interesting thing. Susan, I'm having so much fun here. This is good. Oh my goodness.
I always have fun when I'm with you.
Well,
Yeah.
I should
Awesome.
say, so we're here largely because we want to talk about what you're up to in the world. And I know recently you did some stuff around storytelling. Recently you've done some stuff around that. So let's shift the focus sort of to what you're offering to the world, because of course we're going to be posting all the links for people to get in touch with you, follow you, love you, like you, work with you. Let's talk about what you're currently offering to the world and how someone else might be able to do that.
Yeah. It's actually expanded slightly. But I have a company called Powerful Women Unite, And I started that to network and help people connect so that people didn't feel alone on their entrepreneurial journey in the world, because I had felt alone. So I created that, and that was more of an in-person, staying connected, staying, with other people, to know that you just don't need to be alone. And some of the things that people told story about were um, really relevant to what everyone was thinking about. And it always attracted the right people at the right time. And I decided that, that was great. And I still do that monthly. I'm doing it online now, which is really exciting because that's going to spread to a much bigger audience. So that's very, very interesting, and very cool for me, because I'm restructuring what that looks like. But when you think about what you do and the story that you tell, you need to have a vision. So I help people with their bigger vision of their life, their bigger vision of their future, what their business is going to look like. I help them through some visualizations and a vision boarding workshop. I am right now looking at putting that online because it's something that people still really need. Once we have a vision of what our future looks like and we align it with the work that we're doing, and then we learn to tell the story, it's so much more aligned. And when you become honestly aligned with who you are and what that's to the world, that just makes so much difference for you, for your business, for your life, and all of those around you. So I do have my story. I really take people through, what is a story? What's the dictionary definition? What's my definition? And then I help them create a story from their past, from their obstacles that they've overcome, to help them go through and I'm so passionate about what I do. It's so amazing how it sends out energy into the world and disconnects computers and all this kind of stuff. And I
I was
want
gonna
to be
say.
able to help people with that power,
Mm-hmm.
right? I want to be able to help people release that inner power within them by telling themselves that story that's powerful and meaningful, standing in that, and then sharing their story with others. So in the storytelling workshop, it really goes through um, components of all of that. And then there's a piece near the end, which is really about how do you stand in that power? How do you get yourself through that fear of speaking in front of other people? And I really teach the whole feel the fear and do it anyways. You have a message, you have a story to share. And if it can change the life of one person, it's worth telling.
It's like mic drop yet again. But I think it's so true because I've been telling bits and pieces of my story for a while, and it's certainly time for me to weave them all together in a cohesive unit. And one of the interesting pieces was I shared an element of it, which I often keep sort of fairly hidden. I shared it through, the social medium, Facebook, and didn't get a whole lot of attention on the post. And yet I had people that were reaching out saying, hey, I copied and shared your story and shared it with somebody through a private message. And I thought, well, I'm glad I told it and that's why I told it, because I realized, and sometimes as women, we're not very good at celebrating ourselves, right? We're not really good at stopping and saying, oh, look how far I've come. I didn't think I could do this. And in fact, I can. And so it makes me wonder what else I can do. And I often say, can't became easier to eliminate after I brought my little one into the world. That's the biggest thing I've done yet, right? Not only that, was running a business at the same time, right? Trying to, eat right and stay in shape. Anyway, we're super humans, really, right? And the powerful process that was for me, and the shift. I'd spent my whole life, Susan, just wanting to be brave. And even now, when people say, wow, you're so brave, I think, worked my butt off to be that, right? And I laugh about it because I'm like, well, I became brave when I realized that, she was here. It was a very interesting thing. Anyway, we've got 5-10 minutes left. And so I like to keep these short and sweet, so people, really do want to connect with you. They want to keep coming back to these playlists, so they can just sort of scroll through the YouTube and keep listening as might suit them. So I'm going to basically hand you the call and say, what do you want to leave the listeners or the viewers with?
Well, thanks, Candice. I want to just really touch on one quick thing that you'd said about your daughter. And you know how I did the same thing. When we take that word can't out of sort of our world, because we want to instill on our children that they can do anything. You know, we want to teach them that they can do it. But when we go to do things for us, we don't always do them. We make reasons as to why we can't. So I would invite every person listening to this to do for you first, because you can. And your family, your loved ones, your community, your children, they're going to see that. Be the model that you want them to see. Don't do everything for them and then do nothing for yourself. All too often, we're stuck in this world of what will others think? What will society think? What is the world going to look at us and say and judge us? And if we can really just stand in that story of being who we are, being content with knowing that we have the success, we have the power, we have everything that we need already in us. It's a matter of opening up to what that is, our higher power, God, the universe, and accepting that your back is covered. Teach what you're meant to teach, live the way you're meant to live. And I can't express enough. See, I can use the word, but I can't express enough that you really need to be in your world. Live in the now and define things in your own terms. So what is success to you? What is power to you? What is love to you? Define what that is and achieve it. Because if you're achieving things based on someone else's definition, you will always fail. Think about that. Define things in your terms and then come to those. So I just want to leave you all with this one mantra that I have, the movement that I have, something that I tell the world. Repeat after me. Yes, I can. Because yes, you can. Yes, you can do anything you choose to do in this world. Yes, you will do whatever it's going to take to make that happen. Because yes, you are a successful person. Write it down. Declare it to the world. Yes, you can. What can you do? Yes, you will. What will you do to get there? And who are you? And why do you want it? Make it happen. Bring it to your reality. Your life depends on how you choose to live and what you choose to do. You can do anything that you set your mind to. It's really all in your hands.
Okay. So I don't know what I would say to after that, except that I'm feeling, hella inspired to go out and tackle the world.
There you go.
Susan, thank you for holding space and for speaking so much truth. And I'm thinking, the hashtag for this particular episode is going to be watch to the end, because it's amazing. So if you want to get in touch with Susan and you want a little more Susan in your life, I know I do, you've got to scroll down in the box below. We'll have all of her contact information. You can find her on Facebook. I believe you're on LinkedIn as well. Links to the Powerful Women Unite, lots of different things so that you can connect with her and have a little more of that can-do attitude in your life. So Susan, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been a blessing for me, indeed.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you.
Thank you. And for any of our viewers or listeners, of course, you can find us on the Divas That Care Network. There'll be links to that as well below. If you enjoyed this, there will be links to my other episodes, as well as the other Divas That Care that are there. We are redefining the word diva, and we're taking some of these words back and giving them a new meaning and a new definition that really suits this era and this age. And of course, remember, please like, love, comment, share, follow, subscribe. It really does make a big difference, as we're doing our best to give you the content that is hopefully making a difference in your life. Thanks, everybody.